We're now joined by legal analyst Modidima Mannya, and he joins us now via our video link. Advocate, thank you so much for your time. I mean, there's so much to dissect in terms of what has taken place today and over the past couple of days. Particularly, let's start off, Advocate, with the issue around, the Dr. John Hlophe and that matter being before the courts. Today was indeed the second day. Let's get your word and your thoughts around that legal matter.
Yes, good evening. The issue around Dr. Hlophe, I think, correctly raises the question, is a member of the National Assembly or Parliament subject to restrictions on what he or she can do as a member? But I think the issue starts before that and is whether everybody who is in the National Assembly or Parliament is actually fully fit and proper. And I raise this question because there might be some legal requirements which are met, but a serious deficit on ethical conduct. I mean, if people have been impeached, which means that they failed to meet some of the obligations that are imposed on their office, and now they come back in another form. If we don't trust him as a judge, why do we trust him as a member of the National Assembly? And I think those are the questions that the court may have to grapple with.
And of course, I mean, just looking at, some of the comments coming out from the legal teams, also looking at what the Speaker of the National Assembly has said, that, the prerogative of political parties to appoint really rests with them and their representatives, and clearly saying that here, when it comes to the Constitution, it really doesn't prevent someone from taking up office, because this is a decision then taken by, various political parties. Coming to that issue, would you say that when we're hearing from Advocate Dalimpofu saying that this is seeking to amend the Constitution via the courts, what do you make of that discussion?
Mbali, I remain very concerned that we seem to read out of the Constitution the values and principles which underpin our constitutional democracy, because I think every time we talk about the Constitution, we don't seem to believe or realize that our Constitution is value-based. Our constitutional democracy is value-based. If you go to Section 195 of the Constitution, for instance, it talks about a high standard of professional ethics. Now, ethics are part of our constitutional framework. So to read ethics out of the Constitution will obviously lead to a conclusion that people who may ordinarily not meet the ethical threshold because they meet the legal requirements to be there are in good standing. And I think that's a misinterpretation of our Constitution.
And sticking to that discussion around the Constitution, the issue of a jurisdiction was also brought to the fore, that can this be a matter that the High Court in the Western Cape, presides over? Do you anticipate that this matter may actually end up within the Constitutional Court?
Well, the High Court has jurisdiction, and the Constitutional Court does not like to be a court of first instance, except in those instances where it has to be. So the matter rightly must start at the High Court and be ventilated through the Supreme Court of Appeal, so that it makes it easier for the Constitutional Court to deal with the matter. There are matters which must go directly to the Constitutional Court, but this is not one such matter.
Maybe let's come to other political matters. I mean, we also saw the minister there declaring and saying that really she has nothing to hide when it comes to the loan that she took from, the service provider. What do you make of, the developments thereof when it comes to the minister having not declared this loan when she became minister?
I think even before she became minister, and this issue seems to have occurred when she was a councillor, and the code of conduct for councillors would have required her to disclose. And I think if she did not disclose as well then, it raises questions about, her integrity, because it borders more on honesty and integrity. Now, I understand her argument to be saying that, look, I got this as a loan, it's above board, and no doubt about it, it may be above board, but she has an obligation to declare. Of course, if she failed to declare as a councillor, she's no longer a councillor, so I'm not sure what action you can take against her in terms of the code of conduct for councillors. But she was also not a minister when she took the loan. I think the obligation is now an ethical obligation to say you are now engaged with an entity which is related to an entity which has caused extensive harm to people. And I think she recognizes that fact because she says she regrets the harm that it has caused. But you know, Mbali, in this country, as I said, the issue of ethics and morals is irrelevant. I mean, the former Chief Justice is right. I mean, if you look at the number of people who are now in the National Assembly who have been found wanting in terms of that, raises the question whether even the parliament itself in its entirety has got any moral authority to question a person like the minister. But I'm more worried about the fact that the minister and the president seem to think that they must respond and account on this serious matter at their own, time. I mean, ought to have been laid to rest by now.
Yeah, and I mean, it comes to this point. I mean, you're raising the issues of values and ethics, and one would say that should the minister step aside and step down from her position while this investigation continues?
You know, Mbali, and I think this is the problem that you have. I'm unable to say she must step down. I mean, we just have people now who have been impeached or found to have been involved in things. Just now, they've just joined parliament. So I'm not sure what is the point of her, stepping aside. But I think this, for me, places a very serious challenge on the GNU cabinet, because from what we read, they have decided this matter must be dealt with by the president. But the GNU government is the product of disenchantment by the public on unethical conduct. And it has conveniently decided not to confront. I mean, I can tell you now, the issue of the Minister of Agriculture, of appointing people who don't actually have qualifications and seeking exemption when there are so many people with qualifications, it's a serious ethical issue. It raises questions about whether those who were attacking the ANC for cater deployment are now not doing the same thing.
So and we are on that note, I mean,
a vicious cycle.
Yeah, on that note, what does this say about the fight against corruption if the former Chief Justice is even saying that, that state capture can recur again if we continue to have so many issues with those who represent the public in Parliament?
You know, Mbali, I've started to think that the more things change, the more they stay the same. I think we have lost the war against corruption, including under the current president, because you can almost see that we're not moving an inch. I mean, as the former Chief Justice has said, the president has given us a commitment, and we loved that commitment, but I'm not sure whether he's meeting that commitment. If you have a situation like this one, of the minister admits, I took a loan, there are concerns about the ethics around it. The president says, I still need time. The minister says, I've done nothing wrong. And naturally, it means she sees nothing wrong. We have got ministers in the 6th administration who were implicated in corruption. And I know one minister stepped down but came back to parliament. Now, you ask yourself whether we are going forward or backwards, and I think we're going nowhere. And I think we are not moving an inch in terms of the fight against corruption. Let me remind Mbali that corruption is a power offense. It involves people who are in power. The start of corruption is ethics, is unethical conduct. Once people start to become unethical, the graduation, the honors degree and the master's degree is corruption. So if we are allowing this unethical conduct to fester, we are basically breeding ground for serious corruption. I don't think we are doing anything about corruption. I'm sorry to say that, but we are going nowhere.
All right, advocate, testing times indeed, especially for the 7th administration. That is legal analyst Modidima Mannya talking to us there about legal stories and, of course, what we've seen in recent days when it comes to matters of parliament as well as, of course, within the courts.